Hello and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. Another week gone by and we are back with the headlines of that week. This week we review the week from 10th August to 16th August. And on our radar we have the village panchayat elections, the question whether the Portuguese looted Goa, the GCZMA incriminated by the CAG, and all-night parties are back in Anjuna. To discuss these and other headlines, I have with me the group editor of Herald publication, Mr. Sujay Gupta.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, on August 11th, we have the news in the Herald about the voting that took place in the Gram Panchayat elections, and it was a very high percentage of 78.70. And there was a lot of suspense over the election, whether they would be held in time, people going to the court, and finally the election did happen on August 10. And then on 13th August we have the results which were declared, wherein Herald has said grassroots democracy wins as political parties claim credit. Now basically the high voter turnout implied that there was a vote for change, and obviously there were long-standing members who were defeated, but somehow Herald says that politics has found a way back where MLAs and ministers tried to claim credit for victory. And the Chief Minister himself said that the BJP would have a sway in 150 of the 189 panchayats.
See, it's a chicken and egg situation which is being played out. The reason being that there is one section of the people and majority of the people genuinely think that they are voting for grassroots democracy to be strengthened and to see that people's power as envisaged in the 73rd and 74th Amendment of the Constitution gets truly established at the grassroots level.
Yeah.
So the intentions behind this election were very genuine and they still are. I will first look at the positive side of it. The positive side here is that if you look at the results across the 186 panchayats, there are numerous results which are very pleasing in the sense that you have people in their 20s who've become panchas for the first time.
Yeah.
And the thing is also you will see while we have somebody who's 21 years old who's getting into the electoral fray, you also see a 82-year-old and a 74-year-old also winning, which just shows that the urge to go out and be a part of this grassroots exercise is very much there. See, because if you look at an 84-year-old frail person wanting to give it that one last shot, he's not doing it necessarily for politics. He's doing it primarily, and he's somebody who's gone on winning for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So he's somebody who wants to continue to serve irrespective of any political tutelage on him.
Yeah.
A 21-year-old kid or a 22-year-old kid who becomes a punch for the first time, 9 times out of 10 would not be doing it for political reasons.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the feeling that a panchayat election victory is the stepping stone towards a larger political career, that also is very much there.
Yeah.
Because that has been the path, that you become a panch, then you become a sarpanch, and then you become an MLA, or you become a BDO in some cases, or you become a mamladar in some cases, and that is the whole ecosystem which propels you to power. Now, what is very important to see that what percentage of these people who have been elected, about 1,700 odd people who have been elected as panchas, and then there'll be sarpanchas. Now we have to see what percentage of these people want to ultimately use this as a stepping stone to becoming a pawn in the larger political system, and how many of them would like to defy that and ultimately work for the people.
Yeah.
I think that real litmus test is going to come there.
Yeah.
So that is going to happen, because as far as the political parties are concerned, make no mistake, all these political parties use the panchayats as their foundation stones, as their foundations in the different villages. Because come the next election, they will all be wanting to control the different panchayats so that they feel that they can directly direct each of the ward members or the ward panchayats to go and do the vote getting exercise on their part. That has to change. Secondly, what is very important for all the panchayats and the newly elected members to know what their rights are. And number two, the amount of rights and privileges that they have and the funds already at their disposal. Because what happens is every panchayat can have a road safety committee.
Yeah.
And they have funds to do that. They also have money to handle the garbage situation. every panchayat is entitled to draw money, and there is a certain corpus meant for them to carry out the garbage situation.
Yeah.
They have money to do the basic repairs of the roads in front of them. The street lights come under them. Now the point is they have to not allow the big daddy MLA or the big daddy MP in coming and using their MP lad funds and other funds and taking credit for the work in those grassroots.
Yeah.
So it all depends on how the newly elected members conduct themselves.
No, any comment about the claims of political parties to having control over majority of the panchayats?
See, these claims, much as we would like to say that these claims are unfounded, but that is not true. These claims are founded. Because what happens is that the way the political ecosystem works, there is no denying the fact that many of these people would be backed by certain politicians or the other. And you could see that immediately after election there are so many pictures of these newly elected MLAs going to a particular, newly elected punch members, going to a particular political leader and getting pictures taken with them.
Yeah.
That has also happened.
Yeah.
It was actually heartening to see the Goencho Accord people going and at least taking a picture not with a politician but with a people's representative, I mean with a local NGO, whatever. But otherwise, so many of these people used to go and they've taken pictures with their benefactor, as it were. So it is not unfounded. The fact that there has been political interference in the panchayat elections has become so normal that nobody even questions it.
In our second story of the week, we take up this page 1 anchor of 11th August. MPT's Vasco Bay Project cleared despite major flaws in EIA. Now, this is an old project which the MPT had.
Correct.
And the proposal was to deepen the channel.
That's right.
And in the Vasco Bay from 14 meters to 19.5 meters.
Correct.
And to increase the width from about 250 meters and a length of about 10 kilometers.
See, without getting into the benefits or otherwise of this particular project. See, when this project was envisaged, it's basically to deepen the Vasco Bay channel. We don't know what the ultimate purpose of that was, maybe to have more ships plying and whatever. But what was important here is that the EIA, the environmental impact assessment, was done in a hurry. The consultant who was doing the EIA was not an accredited consultant, number one. Number two, the baseline data that was used for the study was absolutely outdated. And the environmental impact of this was not looked into. So the idea here was that in spite of these flaws in the EIA, this is being carried, and this has become a pattern for many projects. The environmental impact is not assessed properly. The people's views are not taken completely, and it is hurriedly passed more often than not to ensure that one consultant gets the job and puts it out. So obviously this EIA has come, and also what is important is that the EC of this project, the environment clearance, was given for this project based on the fact that the public hearing, the public hearing data. For instance, public hearing happened. Now, after the public hearing happens, you need to create data for it. Now, that volume which carried the data concerning the responses of the people for the public hearing, that material was missing. So they used that whole excuse to clear it without taking on record the volume of the information from the public hearing that happened.
Now from these various major projects which have been or which are attempted to be located in Goa, do you get the feeling that government feels that they can do away with EIA, whereas it is applicable to other private projects, like for example double tracking is one of them. Now this port or maybe the marina also.
See, the way the government works is they don't do away with the EIA, or finally the EC comes, but the EIA they don't do away with. What they do is that the EIA is entrusted to a particular agency, which in turn is either funded by the government or have some kind of a linkage with the government or the project proponent. So what happens is there is a cost to the EIA. Very often we see in many projects the EIA is actually funded either overtly or covertly by the project proponent who wants the EIA to go through. So basically the EIA agency which is writing the report owes its financial allegiance to the very project proponent on whose project they are supposed to give a version of, or they're supposed to adjudicate on this. So obviously there is a vested interest here. So all the EIAs that happen are not very clean in that sense.
In our third story on August 12th, we move on to the Goa Coastal Zone Management Authority getting a rap from the CAG, wherein the GCZMA has been accused of destruction of Khazan land, sand dunes and mangroves, when it is supposed to be a protector of this heritage of the people.
Yeah, in this report they made specific references to the Zuari Bridge and the Atal Setu and all the flyovers. And they've actually said that a large number of Khazan lands and low-lying lands have been obviously been taken away. A lot of hill slopes have been cut, and so on and so forth. Now what they're essentially saying is that the GCZMA should have been a stronger watchdog, because a large part of Goa's fields, environment, Khazan lands are under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Now because of this, the GCZMA should have been very, very strict before giving these projects. They're not saying don't do these projects, but ensure that the environmental safeguards are needed. Otherwise, we are losing a large amount of pristine, kind of very fertile land. And once that goes, these flyovers, of course, will be good to commute and so on and so forth. But what you are destroying when you're trying to build this is enormous, and GCZMA has to kind of be a proper watchdog to see that everything is not destroyed in the name of building these flyovers and so on.
Then moving on to our fourth story of this week, of last week.
Yes.
We have a headline in the Herald which says Portuguese looted Goa during their 400-year rule, and this has been a recurring theme which has been trumpeted by the powers that be. And in this case, the exact quote is, while the country was enjoying freedom, our freedom fighters were still in this prison, that is at Aguada jail. Even after Goa's liberation struggle, some freedom fighters continued to languish in Portuguese prisons for 7 to 8 years, says the Chief Minister. Now here the reference is with regard to looting of Goa. Now Herald also and the Insight has raised a question about this. It was very well appreciated by the people itself. What is your take on this?
No, our take is simple. Take is exactly what is there in the paper, because we brought it out, so that is our take. But to elaborate, the take is, well, more than the take. I think, as we said, that the Chief Minister, in his wisdom, felt that there was a lot of loot during the Portuguese time. He mentioned 400 years, the Portuguese rule more than that, but nevertheless, whatever period he says. Now, from the letter of his words, I mean, if you look at take his words literally, what he meant was during the entire period of 400 years there was loot.
Yeah.
Now, again, we need to know what the loot means, quote unquote, because the word loot was his word.
Yeah.
So all we've asked for, even in our Insight, is to let us kind of quantify the loot, because what it boils down to is the thief has come to your house and has taken your shirts, your gold, your mobile phone, your cash, whatever, you know what is going on. So when your theft has happened, what do? You go to the police station and lodge a report saying that, look, I have lost this. You quantify the loot.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't go and say that my peace of mind has been lost, my mental balance has been lost. You actually say this has been lost. Yeah. This is the loot. Or my fields have been lost, or land has been lost.
Something tangible.
Or heritage, something tangible. And if it is lost, this is the value of this particular loss.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so when you do this, then what happens when you do that? So now the Portuguese left in 1961.
Yeah.
We are in 2022. Okay. Now from 61 to 22, firstly, the loss of this theft could have been reported by 65, 70, 75, 80. You could in about the first 20 years, let's say give it first 20 years, this loot, because there are many governments which ruled Goa at that time.
Yes.
Okay, let us look at the governments which went right up to the year when 2000, 2005, 6, 7, various governments came. They should have reported this loss, or at least said that the Portuguese looted. Yes. Fair enough. Yes. Now, if the Portuguese looted, if the things that the Portuguese have looted, if they are not visible to us, or if we don't know what they have looted, or they could have looted and taken it to Portugal and we don't know where they are, then the next course is okay, then we ask for compensation.
Yeah.
So when you ask for compensation, you also have to quantify the compensation. Now that compensation demand has to be raised not by the Goa government, because
Yeah.
Goa is not a country.
Yeah.
It has to be raised by the Indian government through
Yeah.
diplomatic channels.
Yeah.
Okay. At no point of time has the Indian government also raised this matter, which means the matter was not brought to the attention of the Indian government either, because India has such excellent relationships with Portugal.
Yeah.
When the Portuguese Prime Minister came here about 5 or 6 years ago, the matter could have been raised even at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, it has never happened. The Portuguese Indian ambassador to Portugal, Nandini Singla, has paid 2 visits to Goa.
Yeah.
I don't think it was raised during that time also. So the point here is that if the Portuguese have looted, then this loot should have been mentioned and recovered. Otherwise, people wonder what the loot was. Number one. Number two, let us look at the non-tangible loot which has been mentioned and the tangible loot which is in front of us.
Yeah.
And where we actually mentioned that there is a loot of 35,000 crores of illegal mining which has been mentioned by the Shah Commission itself.
Yeah.
You can dispute the 35,000 crores and talk about any figure, but there is a substantial amount that needs to be recovered. Then there is I would say the loss of our land, loss of our fields, loss of our agriculture, loss of so many things that we have now is also a very tangible loss. Those losses can also be called loot.
Yeah.
Now, these are tangible losses in front of us. We also need to know that we surely hope that these losses are also talked about in the same vigor and same passion, and the urge to recover these losses are as much or are of the same level as the losses that have been supposedly incurred during the Portuguese regime, and the desire to get this money back for the people of Goa is as much as the purported loss that was mentioned during the Portuguese.
Very much.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to our fifth story, that is on 14th of August. A very interesting news story which talks about a PWD contractor being paid 2 crores of rupees before execution of the Margao railway overbridge repair work. And in this case, it is the PWD, that means here in this case the civil servants have paid off this bill.
Yes.
And before the work is completed, and here you have vigilant citizens under the banner of Shadow Council and other prominent citizens of Margao coming forward and objecting to this, such that it has forced the minister to at least declare that there will be an inquiry.
This, I think, is a very, very positive movement, because if the local citizens have themselves gone and through RTI documents have figured out that an amount of 2 crores, was paid for a road which was not even built, and you prepay for a road, and not only that, they've got documents which show at various levels how this payment was cleared, and apparently even before the road was built, there were notings on the file saying the road is absolutely fine, it's been repaired, and it was the good to go or the good to pay approval was given. It just, you see, I'm not very surprised. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm sure something like this must be happening. Things like this must be happening across departments, where money is actually paid before the work is done. Now, one would ask that why is the government so eager to pay money to a particular contractor? The answer is obvious. Okay, but I mean, the point is, if there are any loaves and fishes to be got from the contractor for getting the contract, then the contractor has to be given those loaves and fishes first in lieu of his payment, because unless money goes out, money doesn't come in. So it's very clear what it is. One doesn't have to don't have to speak about it because it's understood. What is shocking here is that taxpayers' money is getting paid in this kind of a manner for work not being done, because we are paying taxes for a railway overbridge. We are paying taxes for good roads. Our taxes are getting wasted. They are not getting utilized for the purpose for which we are paying our taxes, and that is the problem.
Moving on to our sixth story, that is on August 15, Independence Day. Here we are back to another story that we have pursued for a long time, and that is the parties, the all-night parties which go on in Anjuna. They had stopped for some time after Herald had highlighted this in the form of continuous reporting on this. Now in this case, again, the rave parties are organized from Friday to Saturday on these weekends, and they continue till morning. And we have highlighted in the past how these parties have been disturbing the senior citizens. They have been disturbing students who have to report to school the next day. And this is in spite of High Court orders, and the police are not doing their work of patrolling.
See, the answer to this can be said in one line. There is absolutely no fear of the law or the authorities. The authorities are complicit in this. The authorities are friends of the people who are doing this, and nobody has absolutely any fear, because all these establishments know that if there is some bit of noise raised, then there will be some lip service for a few days. Their licenses, may be suspended. Their sound license may be suspended. Their equipment may be taken up and taken out of the premises. This is just a fly-by-night kind of an operation that happens. They know it's going to be business as usual. Until and unless there is a political will and there is a strong administrative and police will to crack down it, nothing is going to happen. We can go on fighting about it. Herald fought about it valiantly. One of our reporters kind of risked her entire kind of life, as it were, to fight so strongly about this, and we have achieved a lot of success there. And they ultimately realize that if a paper and a reporter is brave enough to do this kind of work and take them on, then a change can happen. And because of that, things really change, in the sense that people, noise pollution was completely down for a very long stretch of time.
People began to speak up.
And people began to speak up. We now understand that even a charge sheet in that Herald reporter's case has been filed. All that has happened. Now, with these parties starting all over again there, and that has also happened because it's a long weekend. When the long weekend happens, all these nightclubs stay on till about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock. My point is, if you want to party till 9 o'clock and there is a clientele, there is no problem. Don't do it next to a residential area. So that obviously means don't allow nightclubs to come up in the middle of residential areas, number one. Number two, if somebody wants to party till 9 o'clock, let the establishment get a proper license which allows you to do this. Get a 24-hour license, which is very difficult to get, but you get it. But there is no point in getting a license to play music after 10 o'clock and then flouting it at will. This has to be kind of cracked down, and there has to be very strict deterrent here. And responsibility has to be fixed on this. I think the only way can this happen is you pass a law where if these kind of illegalities happen, the local MLA will be held responsible. The moment you do that, things will change immediately. You make the local MLA responsible for actions like this. So what's going to happen is the MLA will use all his influence and see that these permissions are not given.
Now, our next story number 7, on August 16th itself, is the shocking story of another form of crime. In Sirsai, there was a 5-month-old baby who was murdered by her own parents, and the story suggests that the crime was committed because it was a girl child.
See, this is something which makes our blood boil, and we should firstly hang our heads in shame that this is happening in Goa, especially on the 15th of August. This is not the first instance. In the last 1 week, we have had 2 such incidents where another child was killed by her own mother in Chikali, and that is also shocking. That mother is also in jail. She also attempted to commit suicide. Whatever be the case, but the Sirsai issue is far more alarming and serious, because the initial report suggests that this is a case of female infanticide. It's not just about an infant murder. It's a female infanticide case, and I thought these things happened in the dark ages of India a long time ago, and apparently family and peer pressure and so on and so forth has led to this. Now, if that is the case, it is not just the mother, but I think the entire family and the people who could have been pressurizing the mother are equally liable, and they should all be picked up and arrested for this. So I think it's very important to get a statement out from the mother and the father that this has happened, and anybody who is remotely connected in even provoking this mother or influencing her to commit such a dastardly act should immediately be picked up and arrested under this.
Okay. On August 16th, we have our 8th story, and that is a case which has been strongly pursued by Herald over the last 1 year, and that is the Siddhi Naik case. And in this case, very, very sad that Goa police have filed a closure report, and the police statement has simply put it in very plain language. They have said, we have further investigated the case, we have recorded the statements of more witnesses in the case but could not find anything. We have filed a closure report, let the court decide. So,
see, if you look at the version of the father, all along the father has been saying only one thing, that look, my daughter was murdered. he had to really struggle to see that the murder report itself was registered.
Yeah.
After the murder report was registered sometime in December, January, not a single day has passed where the father has not followed up the investigation. To the best of our knowledge, there has been no investigation that has happened.
Yeah.
If the crime branch is committing an investigation into this particular case, then by now the father would have been called, and he would have been at least he's one. He may not be a witness, but he's somebody who's in the know.
Yeah.
Nobody has been spoken to, nobody has been questioned, and the first part is that the Viceroy was not preserved. It was not preserved. I will not say that it was not preserved out of any motive, but surely that was not the best medical intelligence that was displayed at that point of time.
Yeah.
So I would say that I wouldn't even say it was a professional lapse. I wouldn't go as far as that, but there was certainly a judgment error of a kind that turned out to be far serious later. Let's put it this way. So the point here is that all along, both the GMC and the police, they had this strange kind of a belief and attitude to close this case as a suicide case from then on. It was only due to the pressure of the people, the father, and a small role that Herald played, that ultimately it led to it being registered as a murder case. Now they are turning around and saying that they did not find anything in the CCTV footage. Where was the CCTV footage?
Yeah.
There was no CCTV footage at the bus stop. There was no CCTV footage at the mall where this girl worked.
And at
to see,
Sadanand.
nor was there any CCTV footage available there. So when you are going in completely empty, what are you supposed to get in the first place? The only way this could have happened is to work on the circumstantial evidence angle, talk to more people, get more statements, get an angle which is beyond what you will get from your electronics and from your CCTVs. But there was no proper detective work done on this case, and it's been closed. I think the family should not lose hope and continue to fight, and we should all fight with the family.
Okay. I'm afraid that we have run out of time, and it is time to close. Those were the headlines of the last week. I thank my guest, Mr. Sujay Gupta, Group Editor of Herald Publications, for his insights and analysis. We hope to see you on this program once again next week. Thank you for watching Herald TV.
Thank you.